Well, hey everyone. We're glad that you're here for this live stream today. I'm here with Caitlin Anderson, and we are going to talk about how to home educate your kids. Seems like overnight, a lot of moms and dads have suddenly been thrust into the role of teacher. And so we now have the opportunity to think through, we have questions on how to go about doing that. And Caitlin's been doing that for a while. She's someone who is super competent, someone who worked on staff at Redemption Tempe for a while, is both directing Redemption Women and Redemption Kids, and someone I found as a master problem solver. I think many people are viewing this sudden thrust into figuring out how to do home education as a challenge. So Caitlin's going to help us out with some wisdom. Before she does, I want to go ahead and read the Lord's Prayer. This is something we're doing 3 times a day. We're kind of calling our church to pray through the Lord's Prayer together. If we can't be in the same place together, maybe we can inhabit the same time and the same words of prayer. So I'm going to go ahead and read that. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we have also forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. In Jesus' name, amen. So I think a lot of people are asking, what does it look like for the kingdom to come in home education? And even maybe more pressing, how can Jesus deliver them from evil? Caitlin, before we dive into the specific questions, can you just give us a little snapshot of who you are? Give us your bio.
Sure. So I have 4 kids. Well, let's see. I'll backtrack a little bit. First, I got married. I was been married for 12 years. And then I have 4 kids. Their ages 10, 8, 7, and 5. I have to think about that all the time. And we started homeschooling from the beginning when my 10-year-old was in kindergarten. So we've been homeschooling for about 5 years. And I've sort of done a lot of different things. For the first 3 years of homeschooling, I was working full-time for the church. Half of that was from home. So I do have some working from home and homeschooling experience, which is really a challenge, I feel, for all you parents right now that are still working. But yeah, now I'm mostly home with my kids and just focusing on that. I will say that I have no magic pill today that'll make homeschooling super easy for everybody, because it's not. Homeschooling is about grace and forgiveness. And while I do love to solve problems, Jim, like you mentioned, there is no magic fix to a homeschooling day, because every day is so different. So I come very humbly to this because we had a very rough homeschooling morning. So I was humbled this morning, and maybe can share some things that I have learned over the years that might help you. But really, it's a challenge for someone that has been homeschooling for 5 years. So for those of you that have been homeschooling for 6 days, I am lifting you up in prayer constantly. It's a challenge.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate that posture for sure. Both moms and dads who are trying to figure this out, it is good to hear that even those who've been doing it for a while are experience some of these challenges. First question I wanted to ask you is if there were 3 books that you could recommend for kids that we should get a hold of, what would they be? Part of this idea came from the fact that I've been following your Instagram and Facebook, and you've been putting out these great book recommendations, and you've become sort of the sage of book recommendations. So tell us maybe your top 3.
Sure. Well, you asked me to limit it to 3, and I think I have 5. Like, that's as small as I could make my list.
Go for it.
So I'll
go with 5. Yeah.
But I really think during this time, reading can really connect us together when we're all feeling stressed, that to have kind of that touch point of a great book I think we have such an opportunity there. And I chose mostly lighthearted books because we don't need more heaviness in this season. We need something light that reminds us to laugh together as a family. So kind of for younger kids, I really like Tum Tum and Nutmeg by Emily Byrne. And that's a whole series. And I saw that it was one of the free books that Audible is offering right now. So you can go on and listen to that. Or My Father's Dragon by Ruth Stiles Gannett is great. And those are great kind of early chapter books for younger readers or parents who are reading aloud to younger kids. If you're looking for good family reads, or if you have kids kind of in upper elementary like I do, Goonie Bird Green by Lois Lowry is hilarious. My kids laugh like crazy in that. And then Homer Price by Robert McCloskey. That's a really funny one too, and one that I think boys especially kind of latch onto. So those two are great. And then thinking about kind of the older kids, I think reading aloud even to our preteens and teens is a great way to connect during this season. But Swiss Family Robinson seems like a good fit since they're trapped, we're all trapped together. Let's read a book about it.
That's a great idea.
Oh, I have one more too. And I added this one on thinking about, I know a lot of families are experiencing job loss in this season. And Beverly Cleary tackles real life events that kids deal with really, really well. And Ramona and Her Father is a specific one where they face a parent's job loss and that. So that could be a good one to go to as well.
Yeah, so is Beverly Cleary the one who writes the Ramona books?
Yes, anything by Beverly Cleary is great. Or if you have a lot of boys, Henry Huggins or Ribsy by Beverly Cleary are great too. All her books are awesome.
That's great. I believe we have borrowed some Ramona books from you that Eliana's reading
Yeah.
right now.
Is she enjoying them?
Yeah, for the first time, she's actually reading chapter books and enjoying that. It's pretty beautiful to see. So
Oh, that is so fun. So
yeah.
fun.
Yeah, so tell us about if you had like 3 to 5 just tips of wisdom that you think might help those who are saying, how do I do this home education thing?
Yeah. There's no right way to do it because every family is different. I sort of asked this on my Facebook page yesterday, kind of prepping, and every family looks so different. You know, some families have special needs, some kids are highly motivated, others are not. Some have boys that are busting at the seams with energy. So just release yourself right now from the thought that there's a right way to do it, because there isn't. But sort of some things I've learned along the way that have helped me is the first is to do a rhythm to your day and not a schedule. I grimaced last week when all these beautiful schedules were, going viral around the internet for parents to latch onto. But the problem with this schedule is it doesn't allow our kids to be human. Because if at 9 o'clock we're supposed to start our schoolwork, and at 9 o'clock is the time that this child decided to have a major meltdown, then what do we do when that pushes our day to 9:30 and now we didn't leave enough time? So creating kind of a rhythm to your day, maybe writing down how you would like things to be ordered without a set time schedule, allows you to have an open hand and allows space for having conversations, which are really important in this season right now with our kids. We need to be able to stop and see the kid that is struggling at this moment and know that that conversation and that time you're going to spend with them trumps anything you had on the schedule at that very moment.
That's good. What's interesting is that seems like a wise advice for everybody whose schedules and rhythms are disrupted right now, is to have a rhythm rather than kind of the rigid schedule. Yeah. What would be number 2?
Oh, number 2. So I think the other thing we have to think through is rethinking hours for work and school. So just because our kids' school day was 8 to 3 or whatever, that doesn't mean that has to look like that at home. And also for parents working at home, your work hours can be as flexible as they can be. So one bonus of homeschooling is that you do have that flexibility unless teachers are requiring you to check in, which I know some schools are. But you don't have to sit and do math from 8 to 3, all your lessons during that time. You can, if you're working at home, you can do your school lessons with your kids in the evening when you have more time to kind of sit there and go through it with them. Or if you need to work with each kid individually because you have kind of some high need ages or high need kids, your first child gets your attention from 8 to 9 a.m. and the next child gets your attention from 9 to 10:30 or however you work it. But we have to kind of release ourselves from the school and work hours that we know it and only live within the boundaries that our work and school are requiring at this moment. I know one family too that their parents work full time, but they also homeschool, that they do all their homeschooling on the weekends. And so that's another option. If you are working full time from home right now, and your kids are home too and have schoolwork to do, maybe Saturday and Sunday is times when you guys kind of try to tackle some of that instead of trying to do schoolwork and work at the same time.
That's good. That's good. One question I've heard from people in the congregation is, how do you manage the different needs of different kids and how they might be on a different pace or different lessons because of them being different ages?
Yeah. So that's definitely a challenge that I face every day because all my kids, they're kind of younger elementary. And so most of them need me to get through their lessons. And so one thing I do is I always try to plan the night before. And I did like a little Instagram story that probably a lot of you already saw. But if you have just like a notebook or even just a piece of paper the night before, sort of writing out each child's lessons for them with a checkbox that they can check off. And then for all work you need to check, put a checkbox at the end so they know that that's something that mom has to look at or dad before they move on. But that gives them a touch point so that they can get started on their work if they want to, but I don't tie them to that. So I know for my kids, I tend to work with just 1 or 2 kids at a time. And I try to offer other activities that the other kids can do that don't need my help. Maybe that's learning Chinese or Spanish on our tablet, because there's some great games for younger kids to do that. ABC Mouse is great for those younger kids. Letting them draw a picture about a story we read, or giving them some outside time while I work with another kid. But depending on our day, I would say most of our days, at least my younger 3 kids, mostly get me one-on-one, and we just spread it out, if that makes sense. So I'm doing lessons longer, but their lessons are shorter.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Yep, totally. And what's your third nugget of wisdom?
I would say, especially in this season, to look at life lessons as greater than book lessons. If your school's not requiring you to turn in work right now, oh man, I would say that's such a blessing, because you can just read with them and think about all the things that we always think, I wish I had more time to teach my kid this, whether that's cooking or chores, or if they're older, taking care of a car, changing a tire, that sort of thing. But I know a lot of schools are requiring kids to turn in lessons, but being able to do the lessons, but know when it's time to put it away, because the life lesson in this moment is more important. Because as I know, we have all probably struggled with fear and anxiety, which our kids are feeling. And what they see is even more uncertain than what we see, because they don't really understand what's going on. So I feel like we have this really unique opportunity to walk with our kids through something hard. And I would just really encourage you to not let math, because there's always time to catch up on math later, but not let math or reading or language arts become greater than the life lessons that we have this opportunity to teach our kids right now, and the opportunity to point our kids to Jesus in something that's really, really hard.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. Yeah, I think there's a ton of wisdom with everything you said that I actually, as I'm looking back on those 3 points, it seems like those points are crucial for children and also every adult uh, in this season. So I really appreciate you taking the time. If there was one final word that you had for the parents out there, what would it be?
Um, okay, Jim, I can't stick to your rules. I'm going to give 3 words. Um,
Perfect.
I would say forgiveness, prayer, and compassion. Those are the 3 things that I think as parents. So I've given you practical tools to kind of help your kids through the day, but as parents, schooling at home right now, there is going to have to be ample amounts of forgiveness.
Mm,
Uh, we're going to lose our tempers. Our kids are going to lose our tempers. And we're going to have to be quick to apologize and forgive each other. To be constantly in prayer. I mean, throughout their day. I wrote a prayer for myself about 6 months ago that's just a short tidbit that I can memorize. So I can say it throughout my day with my kids or in my head to help me keep my cool with my kids.
mm,
And then compassion, especially in this season, um, looking at our kids who are really driving us nuts, if we're honest,
mm,
um, and instead looking at them with the posture of Jesus and seeing their fear and their anxiety and their stress that they're feeling and having compassion on them in that moment. So forgiveness, prayer, and compassion, I would say, are the 3 words that we just need to carry with us throughout the
mm.
day.
That's good. That's good. Caitlin, thank you so much. Thank you for opening up your wisdom to us. And I would say, for those who want to kind of know more about what Caitlin's doing, she does a really good job with her Instagram and Facebook. Mostly her Instagram is where I'd point you, um, of kind of documenting and displaying what they're doing. And we would just say that we are praying for the families here and this opportunity to help cultivate faith and trust in Jesus rather than fear during this time, and really focus on the formation of of persons made in the image of God. So we're praying for that like crazy. If you want prayer for that, go ahead and reach out to any of the pastors and elders. And Caitlin, thanks so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.